Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Make Life Less Taxing podcast, the show where we uncover what really creates freedom in life and business, and we'll explore stories of those who've learned how to build wealth with purpose.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Make Life Less Taxing podcast. Today, I'm speaking with Andrea Davis, founder of Elev8d Solutions. Andrea is a successful strategist, leadership coach, consulting, and author who helps unlock potential for powerful breakthroughs. Andrea's approach helps leaders and teams navigate complex challenges, achieve high-impact results, build meaningful connections, and elevate personal and professional life. Andrea, welcome to the show.
It's a thrill to be here, Daniel. I love talking to you.
Great. Awesome to have you here, Andrea. Can you tell us a bit more? I know I gave you a bit of an introduction, but a bit more about you, who you are, and what is the work that you do?
Yeah. So I have a background in healthcare, actually, healthcare leadership, and worked in corporate life for more than 2 decades. I'll just leave it at that. And started Elev8d Solutions about 4 years ago with a passion for helping people move forward and upward in life. I had found that corporate life was challenging, especially in healthcare and in other industries, as I've done some consulting. And we need to get back to just finding joy in the journey and problem solving together with more meaningful connection. So I've made that my dedication, my passion, and my focus. I've spent the last 4 years consulting with large and small firms to help leaders and teams connect better, problem solve better, build better relationships, more effectiveness. And I do that through my frameworks of strategy, but also drawing on positive psychology and neuroscience. And I'm also a certified coach in positive intelligence. And so I use those kinds of techniques to help people learn more about themselves, do some self-discovery, and then that helps them work better as teams and leaders.
I mean, you bring out a great point, and I think a lot of us, the work on ourselves is probably the hardest work we will ever do. I think there's a lot of people that kind of shy away from that, and I think a lot of us kind of do start it. A lot of people that I talk to, and I primarily do work with financial advisors in the financial services, being a recovering CFP myself and being an advisor. Looking back, and I think a lot of us kind of started more on the corporate side, but for you specifically, like looking back at your corporate career, when was the kind of the first moment that you can think about that you realized that, this isn't really something that's a good fit for you anymore?
I think it just evolved to a point where there were enough changes in the organization I was with that it just wasn't rewarding anymore. There were, I had built really strong relationships with many leaders, worked with the C-suite, worked with other executive leaders in many functions. It was a large firm. And once things started to change, there were mergers and acquisitions, other changes. I just found like the environment had just shifted to a point where I wanted to try something new. And still have a lot of admiration for the organization I was with. I was there for a long time, but I wanted something new. I was ready for my own development, and my growth journey has skyrocketed since leaving more of a corporate life where I have to make my own decisions and do things that I feel are the best for me. And it's just been joyful, like truly joyful. I feel like I live each day doing what I want to do, how I want to do it, serving the people I want to serve and the teams I want to serve. And the work I do helps people live life better. And that's my whole purpose, really.
I think anybody that has gone from kind of that corporate or starting a business, let's just talk about entrepreneurs, I think we're all after, I call them the 4 Ws, right? Like working on the work that you really enjoy and you love doing, working with whomever you want to go and do it with, doing it whenever you want, and also doing it wherever you want. Unfortunately, I think what happens with a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs, and I was a financial advisor, called myself an accidental business owner. We think that actually starting a business, we're going to have more of those freedoms, but what we really realize that we really got ourselves into a job, right? And I think that's kind of the biggest struggle. So when you deal with people and when you kind of sit down with them, You probably see this a lot where people have all of these great ideas. They want to go and do this, but sometimes they don't really self-reflect on themselves and going like, hey, am I actually doing what I wanted to do? Or do they just kind of get back into that grind? Because I think when you work in corporate, often it is kind of like, well, you're just kind of told what to do and you just go and do it. When you become an entrepreneur, you want to be free, but unfortunately, often you do kind of go and build a job for yourself.
Yeah. I think being selective about your clients and about the work you take on is important. And when you start out new, it's hard to do that, hard to be selective because, of course, you need to generate a revenue and make money. And that becomes sort of, a focus. But I've been blessed to have other resources working in my life, investments and other things, property, to help give me a cushion so that I could actually focus on what I really want to do. So when I get in with teams and leaders, we often look at what are their strengths and we assess that there are a variety of ways I do that. But what is it that lights you up? What is it
Mm.
that gives you energy? Because work can give you energy and relationships can give you energy, or they can take it away. And so what we try to do is find ways to create win-win solutions, elevated solutions, solutions that are um, win-win for everybody because people need to feel safe. They need to feel trust. They need to work with people that complement them. And the collaboration and the complementing is really important. And it actually helps both or the whole team thrive when people have different strengths and they work together to maximize them all. So that's the goal that I have when I work with leaders and teams. And great leaders know how to spot that and how to foster that and lead teams to do that. Because what fills you up, Daniel, is probably different than what fills me up and gives me energy.
Yeah.
We're just different. I mean, but when we work together, we can complement each other and go further faster as a team. And so that's the kind of work I'm all about. And I love doing it. I like seeing people thrive in that way.
Yeah, you bring a great point, and I think the hardest thing I know it was for me is just to realize that slow is fast and fast is smooth. And you know what? I can't remember what president said this, but he said, "Hey, if I had 4 hours to cut down a tree, I'm going to spend like 3.5 sharpening the saw." And I think often when we start in business and we start doing things, we don't actually slow down. We just feel like we kind of hustle harder, and we are kind of part of this culture, the hustle, and kind of push things through and go and do this. Where I think what you're bringing in and what you're talking about is, hey, you know what, like slow down a little bit. Like, yeah, think about it. This client coming on, yeah, it is about the money, but in the long term, it will probably cost a lot more because life is not just about getting a big hoard of pile of green bills and just having the money. There is a lot more, as we were talking about before, the freedom. But when you kind of sit down with individuals, do you kind of see that, yeah, you know what, slowing them down is actually the best thing to do right from the beginning? It's kind of the idea that I'm just getting, somebody told me, and it didn't make sense to me at the beginning, like, hey, when you're ready to start a business, the first thing you should think about is how you're going to get out of it. And I always thought, like, what do you mean by that? That doesn't make any sense. But I think that's all kind of the same thing where you got to, sit down and really think about what is happening, what needs to happen, and kind of take it a little bit slower as opposed to just kind of rushing into something because we've got all of that excitement, because that excitement often kind of peters off as time goes on.
Yeah. No, I do think it's really important to slow down enough to understand yourself well.
Mm.
And then even better to understand your team members well and what are their strengths and what are their opportunities. I like to focus on the positive. I'm hired because there's a big problem. If I'm being honest, like there's some issue or challenge or there's something's not working. And so in order to get to the root cause of what's not working, you really do have to slow down enough to understand why is it what deeper why questions to find out what is it. Is it a dynamic? Is it weakness and skill? Is it, what is it? Is it a situational thing? How
Mm.
can the team problem solve better? Is there a trust issue? Often there is. And how do we build trust? And how do we make changes so that everyone can move forward in a more positive direction? I like to look at it not just financial, although that's always important. How can we become more efficient? How can we
Mm,
be more, generate more revenue, have more growth? But I also like look at quality of life and quality of culture and what is the team like and what is it like to work here? Often I work with firms that have turnover problems. And
mm,
I was like, well, that's costing you a lot of money. And what is the root cause of the turnover? The best recruiters are people who are ambassadors of your firm and they help people stay. The best
mm,
recruitment strategy is to actually have people stay, to help make life at work so much better that they don't want to leave. And we know from all the research that it's not just pay for that why people would stay. There's so much more to it than that. And the biggest reason why people leave is usually a leadership or culture problem.
mm. Yeah, you bring a great point, and I think often people focus kind of on the wrong thing, and that's what you're mentioning in here because it's most people think, hey, you know what? If I pay them more, or if I give them what I think that they want, they're gonna stay. But often people, like you said, they don't stay just for the money. Often there is a lot more. There has to be some type of fulfillment of it, and they're not just like a cog in the whole system where they just keep on doing the same thing. People actually want to go and give more. And again, when you kind of pull that back and you start to find out what are people actually interested in, what is it that they want outside of the money, the whole I think cohesion of the whole team can work together much better. So
Yeah, very
do you
much.
find like is there like one thing that's kind of running across the whole thing, or is it often many different things? I think communication is probably the number one thing for me that maybe has, because again, there is different facet of communication, but do you feel maybe communication is the one thing that kind of makes a good team great, or kind of the most important thing?
It's certainly foundational. And I've spent a career doing, I worked in marketing communications in healthcare. So that was my lane. And I did official corporate communications, but I also helped facilitate internal and interpersonal communications, team development. And so, yes, communication is really foundational. How people communicate is different, though. And learning about how people communicate, which again, some of the strengths and finders can help you understand how you communicate, can really help you shape how you interact with each other and honor people for who they are.
Hmm,
And they're going to be different than you. It's no one's the same, but everyone is a powerful human being with a lot to contribute. And so to tap into that, the genius of who people are and what they can bring. Now, sometimes people bring toxicity into the workplace, and I
hmm,
don't want to sugarcoat this because it can happen and it does happen. And sometimes toxicity needs to be removed from the workplace in order to help the team fully thrive. So I understand that. I don't want to sugarcoat it, but for the most part, my belief is that everyone brings strengths, experiences, skills, abilities to contribute, new ways of thinking, diversity that help the team do better.
hmm,
And if we can tap into that, the genius of everyone, then everyone feels more fulfilled and not as threatened. I think trust and feeling
hmm,
threatened at work is it's a competitive world out there, and AI is contributing to that. Some of us are competing for our jobs with AI,
yeah,
um, not with other humans. But the competitive nature of the world today, just I like to try and break that down and say, how can we all be on the winning team? How can we all rise together? How can all the boats float better,
yeah.
higher?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think the one point is just people having the awareness around this, like even what you just mentioned, with communication or getting to know other people, and I tend to think even about myself that sometimes I'm a little bit self-absorbed, but I think we kind of all are. But it's always good to just go and be and give the benefit of the doubt to somebody else and ask them and make them aware, because most people, even for myself, sometimes we just don't see it. Oh, it's kind of like the thing, you're looking for the keys. And the other day, I had something on my desk and I was looking for it and I swear it wasn't there. And the next thing I know, it's there. And it's like, okay, how does our brain really trick us into this thinking where when we're thinking it's not there, truly it's not there, even though it's right there in front of us? And I think just having that awareness around how people communicate, how they behave, and just trying to understand their situation, I think goes a long way.
Absolutely. And I think the leader is key to helping foster a culture that everyone can honor and respect each other's strengths and be willing to better understand their strengths, but also where they need help or where they need support, so that it's I can lean on, someone on my team to help me with an area that's not my strength, but I can bring a different strength, and together we can do better. So that's the focus of my work. And we use a lot of tools and strategies to do that. We really work on visioning and how does the team create a vision where it's so compelling and so rewarding to work toward that vision. It's more than just the work every day.
Hmm.
It's we're doing something more than myself, more than themselves. And so having a really strong vision, being able to communicate it well, understand how you contribute to that vision is really key. And then creating a culture of problem solving and of safety and of, you know, trust is
Hmm.
really kind of foundational. All of that is very foundational. And then the results start to climb. Like all of a sudden things start popping and solutions come up that were never thought of before, and creativity starts to unlock, and ideas start to generate, and the team starts to feel success, and then they see success, and then it starts to spiral up. And the more it spirals up, the more you double down on the things that are working, and it starts to feel like work is joyful. Like this is fun.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean,
It
that's the
should be.
goal.
Yeah.
It should be so fun.
Yeah.
People should be lit
Why
up
go
by
make money and be miserable when you can make money and be happy, right? So bringing that
exactly.
happiness into there goes a long way.
And more people, when they do things that actually light them up, they actually do better. They are
Yeah.
more successful when they're in work otherwise they're miserable. And sometimes
Mm.
the work itself is just not a match. Pat Lencioni has a great tool called Working Genius where you can find, do an assessment and figure out what gives you energy, what kinds of tasks, what kinds of assignments give you energy, what are, you know, neutral and what just suck your soul. And most of us can pinpoint this work is sucking my soul. Like if you're doing that all day, every day, soul sucking work,
Yeah.
you're not going to be happy in your job. Just not. So how
Yeah.
can you learn enough about yourself to figure out what is it that gives me energy? What is it that lights me up? What makes me excited? And we all have to do work that falls in all the categories, but we want to limit the soul sucking
So,
and, boost the energy enabling work. And
yeah.
that's what I try to do with my teams.
Yeah. Well, I think it comes just having the awareness of it. The exercise that you mentioned, I've done it myself several times, and I suggest it for advisors to do. Is like just sit down and write down all of the things that you have to do on a daily or a weekly basis, and then put beside it, hey, is this something that gives me energy? Is this something that takes energy from me? And then sit down and go like, well, hang on, you know what? If it gives me energy, I should maybe keep on doing that. But even with that, take a look at it. Hey, you know what? Can you actually, make it better, make it easier, automate it somehow? But if there are definitely things that are taking energy from you, then yeah, you got to go and take a look at it. Hey, do I still need doing it myself? Do I need to delegate it? Do I need to automate it and figure out where that's going to go? Because yeah, if you're constantly doing the things that don't energize you, or if you're doing more things that don't energize you, at some point, a person's just going to burn out and they're just going to say,
Yeah.
forget it. I'm out. I'm
Starts
not
to
going to
leave
go and do
people.
this.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
what's cool is what might be energetic to you might be soul
Oh,
sucking to someone else and vice
yeah.
versa. And so if you can, that's the beauty of teams. It's like, oh, let's find the person that actually loves this thing, this task or this
Yeah.
work, if it can't be automated or whatever. And let them enjoy the the energy that comes from doing that. So everybody's different. And so there's no one style that's the same ever. And
Yeah.
so that's the beauty of a team. And that's what I try and find. It's finding those golden nuggets, and it helps with recruiting and retention, but definitely recruiting. Because if
Yeah.
you understand the team and what work is and what needs to be done, and there's no one on the team that likes X task, then you want to find someone who actually gets energy from X
Yeah.
task and recruit that person to build the team up.
Yeah. Well, I say that everybody gets, when we're born, we get birthday gifts, right? Like things that we really enjoy. Unfortunately, most of us never discover what they are. And I think that's really where it comes down to, where we go get a job and we kind of get into the grind and then we just keep on doing it. And we never really truly discover what gives us energy because, again, we did not slow down and try to kind of figure that out. So, listen, when you're looking at it, we talked about mindset, fulfillment, positive psychology. What, from your experience, what do most people kind of misunderstand about the work that that you do around these things?
Well, some people think, first think of toxic positivity, like, that you're not really looking at the real problems. But, and, that there might be some truth to that here and there. But for the most part, I would say that that's really not the issue. We're born, and you were saying we're, born with strengths and weaknesses and ideas and stories in our head that come with us and experiences that we have in childhood and stuff. And we tell ourselves a story about those experiences. And we develop, uh, all of us universally develop the ability to judge those experiences as good or bad, positive or not.
Mm,
And one person might have the same exact experience as another, and one may judge it positive and one may judge it awful. And so the stories we tell, and we do a lot, we have to, as we grow in today's society, develop ways to cope with what happens and what's coming our way. That's just whether you had a great childhood or a traumatic childhood, either way, you have to survive your life. And so you develop sort of a fight or flight response that protects you. And as people develop these protections that serve them early on, as adults, they become habits or patterns
mm,
and ways of thinking. And I'm getting into positive intelligence a little bit, but these are sort of saboteurs of the mind. These are things that sort of help us interpret our world in a certain way that may or may not serve us anymore.
mm.
And I like to say, there are warning signals you can, you know, if you are in an environment that's not safe, you probably can instinctually figure that out. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Most people, it's like putting a finger on the hot stove. You get burned and it's a warning. So you have the warning, but why would you keep your finger on the hot stove? And suffer,
Yeah.
continue to suffer. And so take the lesson, get the warning, and then there's a way to move from your sabotage brain or your fight or flight response to what they call the sage brain, which is more of a creative, problem-solving, innovative part of your brain. And most people today in our society operate with the left brain sabotage all the time,
Hmm.
kind of 24/7. And if you can break out of that, and that's some of the work I do with teams, break out of that and move into sage and start to do things that are creative, innovative, problem-solving, relational, all of a sudden solutions start popping up that you'd never thought of before
Yeah.
because everyone's in sort of a fight or flight state. So there are techniques to actually shift your brain into sage and to identify your saboteurs and catch them and weaken them and do all kinds of things to help put yourself in a position where you can be more positive and more happy. There's a science behind it.
Yeah.
And you can rewire your brain. You can choose how you're going to think. And there's a whole, neuroscience, neuroplasticity, all of that really helps you shift your mindset to a whole nother world of possibility. And I love helping people get there, make those shifts. And it's a daily practice. It is
Yeah.
not something that's one and done,
Yeah.
but it's a great way to live. As I've learned these techniques and implemented them in my own life, it's been transformational for me, literally transformational.
Yeah.
It's really
I
great.
mean, the one thing that you mentioned, we have all of these stories, and they are just stories, and I just love as you were talking about it. I've done a lot of work over the last probably about 12 to 14 years really working on myself and doing that. And yeah, probably the hardest work that I've ever done, because there were things that have happened in my childhood and things that I've had to overcome. And yeah, behaving or thinking about a problem when I'm in my 50s the same way I did when I was 9 years old doesn't really work very well. And I've
Well, it's
definitely
not
see the
serving,
patterns, you know.
right? It's not serving you anymore.
It's not serving, but realizing it's not serving, and I think this is what we're talking about, is
Yeah.
kind of the biggest part. So why do you think that so many and high performers, I think we often have a challenge with this, even though that, and I'll put myself in that, we know that it's holding us back, but we find it so much resistance of actually keep on working on this. And again, a lot of it, I don't believe it's like a conscious resistance. A lot of it is subconscious, where we just don't notice because, again, I think we're just trying to move fast and do more things. Why do you kind of feel, or do you have an answer to that? Why do you feel that maybe it is? Why do you have so much resistance to that?
Well, they're patterns. They're patterns that have developed over your whole life. And your brain looks for evidence of what it believes, and then it looks for evidence to reinforce that. And so those patterns are pretty ingrained over time as we've all grown. So the trick is to, one, identify it, identify what they are. And like a hyperachiever is actually a saboteur of the mind that is identified in the positive intelligence as one of 9. But when you identify, you can take an assessment for free, actually, and identify these saboteurs of the mind. And then once you have the awareness, that's like a huge breakthrough in and of itself. To say, like, for me, I have a saboteur of the mind called restless. So I'm like, on to the next, go, 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 next, next, next. Like, I'm constantly looking for the next thing. And I do have a hyperachiever going too. And so I do finish what I start, but then I get into overwhelm, of course, because I'm like, yes, and yes, and yes, and I'm restless. I don't want to slow down.
I
So
just
that's
call
just,
it being an entrepreneur, though. That's not a human thing. That's being a business and entrepreneur, isn't it?
well, maybe that's why I chose to be an entrepreneur. I'm not sure. But now that I'm aware of it,
Yeah.
and I can see myself doing it, making decisions that I didn't take the time to think through. It was just a yes and. Now I know. And so I do catch myself. I catch my restless saboteur all the time. And I really slow down. I make fun of it. I see you.
Hmm.
I see what you're doing. This is a good idea, but let's take a step back and decide if we really want to do that. Is that where you want to spend your time and energy right now? And really just taking that pause. And then there are exercises, literal mental fitness exercises that you can do. I'm doing one right now, actually, where I'm putting my fingers together. But the sensation of noticing your fingers rubbing together actually shifts your mind,
Yeah.
and helps you shift over to sage brain. So that's just one simple one that I do all the time. Now that I know how to do it, I'm pretty much doing it all the time. It's fun.
Yeah. Well, I think what you mentioned is just having the awareness. And I think the biggest thing that I've learned around this work is that it's not like, oh, you just figure something out and now you're fixed. It doesn't work like that, right? Like, it's kind of like peeling the onion, right? Like, you peel one thing and then you find yourself in that same situation, but now you have the awareness a little bit sooner, or you notice it sooner. Well, that's the work. And I think for us, and I can identify with what you mentioned, kind of being a little bit restless, always go, go, go. I think this is where it's like we achieve something quite momentous, but we already forgot about that. And we already have this next
Next.
goal, and we don't even celebrate. We don't kind of pull back. It's kind of like trying to chase after the horizon. You will never reach the horizon because there is always another one just beyond the first one. And when we get closer, we don't even see the first one. We're already focusing on the second one. And we just kind of keep on going. But
There you
having the
go.
awareness, and that's where it comes down to just slowing down a little bit, acknowledging it. And I like what you just mentioned, just like, hey, put it into a third person. Hey, I see what's happening, and make a little bit fun of it. That breaks that attachment, because I think that's what happens to it. You mentioned grooves, and what I was thinking about, and I think it's part of a story of kind of grooves, like grooves in the road, right? Like, why are the roads the width they are, or even it was for the trains, because when they used to have the old carts, it was a certain gauge, I guess they called it, then you would have these ruts. And I think it's the same thing. Well, what we need to do is just having the awareness, hang on, I'm falling into that rut. I don't want to get stuck in here. I want something different. And that's where it starts slowing down and having the awareness around that.
Yeah. And it takes being a bit vulnerable with yourself, like, being willing to accept that, these are ways of thinking that you've had for a long time, and having the self-confidence and the awareness and the vulnerability to say, you know what, it's not serving me anymore.
Mm.
I get to choose, like I get to choose how I'm going to respond to the situation. And, we get new complex situations all the time. It might be similar, like, that if a certain situation comes up, you can expect a certain reaction from certain people, and it's almost like you can predict it. And so even in yourself, you can kind of predict if this kind of situation crops up, I'm probably going to react this way. And I'm going to anticipate that. Now that I have awareness, I'm going to anticipate that. And what are the other options for how I could respond, and
Mm.
actually think about it before it happens. Um, Especially in certain dynamics in close relationships or with work, in other colleagues in the workplace. If you have sort of that niggling tension that is there, it's like, how am I contributing to that? And how can I change my response to help shift the outcome? That's so empowering. It's really incredibly empowering. And it also is a gift to other people, because when you really do the work to understand yourself and what you're doing, then you can give a better response. You can give more love, more caring, more compassion, empathy to other people, and accept that maybe they're not at their best self right now because of, maybe it's situational, but it's really, it helps you be a better human being, and it helps you relate to others in a more powerful way. So I love working with teams and helping them discover these things and then put them into practice. There are ways to play games and other things that will draw out sage brain and help with innovation and creativity that are fun and energizing to teams, and shift the whole team into a
Yeah.
sage mindset. And that's really fun to do.
Yeah. You brought something that I believe is very powerful is games. I think when we're playing a game, and I laugh at it now, but anytime I play games, even with my kids, I mean, they're grown up, they're adults now, but it's just funny to me how competitive I suddenly become, and how almost, I'm going to call it cutthroat. And it's like, where does this come from? And again, because I think in games, we're more relaxed. We're not actually, not that we're not thinking about what we're doing, but we're not really concerned about everything else. We're just kind of, for me anyway, I'll just say it for me, really focused. And I did some personal development, and we were playing a game, and it was quite fascinating how people, when they got into the game that we played, I don't know if you were, Clemmer and Associates, that's where I did this. I think the one game was a red and black game. And it was quite interesting how literally people that were even married became where so ruthless towards each other because they were on separate teams. And it was just, and again, people just got wrapped up in the whole thing. But there was one thing that came out of it is how you do something is how you do everything. And I think games is a great way of having that awareness about yourself. What is going on? And like pause, like why did you become like that? And since I've done that every time I play a game, sometimes I go, okay, Daniel, just take a deep breath. It's just a game of sorry. It's okay. You don't have to win every time. And I've had to literally just like slow down. It has helped me because we kind of, again, getting into that rut where we just start behaving like that. And games are a great way of really exposing what's happening on the inside, because I think the kind of the true color in a fun way, well, I'm going to say if it's a fun way, but really shows you what somebody's like when they're playing a game, because they're going to be the same way in a little bit more serious environment.
Right. And what I love is to create games that actually put the whole team on the same win, like that they have to work together to win. And so they're competing against time, or against
Hmm.
a competitor, or against, AI or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like, if you're on the same team, you're going to do anything. And that's where your gift, I will call it a gift of competitiveness. It's not always a negative thing. It
Oh,
can be a gift.
100%.
It's a great thing. And it can
That
help.
game was designed. We were all set up right from the beginning, and we knew it at the end. We were set
Yeah,
up. It happened exactly. I mean, they've played that game hundreds of times, and it happens the same way. It was set up for us to get the awareness of it and to go learn from it. So I think on the positive side, 100%, yeah, I kind of painted it in a negative way. 100% agree with you. That competitor, it's great, but it's got to be used in a proper way and,
there you
and
go.
having the
And
awareness,
how
right?
can you apply that strength
Yeah,
in various situations to actually help yourself and others win? I mean, that's why you've been so successful, Daniel. That competitive spirit in you has helped you be wildly successful in your career, and that's to be celebrated.
yeah.
So,
It's
yeah,
interesting that you saying that, man. That like completely triggered me because my mind was already. What do you mean by that? No, that's not true. And again, just like no, you know what? That keep on pushing forward and going like, no, hang on. There is a lot of successful things that I have done. There is a lot of successes that I've had. But it's fascinating when somebody tells you that, how right away my mind anyway, goes into the negative side of things. And this is what I've had to learn. Like, how do I go? Because again, that was just programming, how I grew up, the environment I was in. Listen, I was born under communism and all of that stuff. So, there was a whole bunch of messed up stuff that I grew up around. And now I get to go and kind of give myself a bit of a break, that was the biggest thing that I've learned, boundaries, giving
yeah,
myself boundaries, and also giving myself, like, just like right now, credit where credit is due, because so often I'm chasing after that horizon that never comes. But setting up boundaries, and I just learned this about 3 or 4 years ago, that really made sense to me. I'm like going, hang on, that's why I'm the way I'm at, because there were no boundaries set for me. How do I protect myself? Because it was always kind of like give of myself as opposed to protecting myself.
yeah. Isn't that? I mean, that's the kind of learning, Daniel, that I love to help
Mm,
facilitate. Like that introspection, that growth that comes from learning from your experiences and finding a way to make life better in the future because of what you've learned. And that's the growth process. And that's the part. That's why I love the work I do.
yeah,
I love people to grow and develop and be happier. Uh, I'm about raising the energy level of the planet. Everyone is happier, better, strengthened, energized, supportive, collaborative. All of
yeah.
those things are possible. I believe that there is an abundance of possibility in the world, and we just need to focus on the abundance and not the lack.
Yeah. Oh, 100, listen, what you just mentioned is the reason why I got out of the financial industry, because after I did my CFP designation, that's why I called myself retiring CFP. I read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yeah.
And there it was all about abundance. Where I started looking at the financial industry, and it was like everything's like save, scrimp, save. And it was like, well, what if we take all of that energy? Because it takes the same amount of energy to save as it takes to create. And my feeling is actually takes less energy to create, because when you're save, it seems hard. It seems like, oh, I've got to do this. Where,
All they're fun.
when we're excited about something and we're creating something, it's a lot more joyful. It doesn't even feel like work. And that was kind of the biggest differentiator for me. Like, we get to choose, just like you said, the stories that we have. We get to choose what story we tell ourselves. We just never taught that we get to choose to tell a happy story as opposed to a sad story to ourselves. And we often have not been told that it's up to you what story you tell yourself. Because even right now, as I'm saying this, there is all of these ideas coming. Yeah, well, you have to tell yourself a negative story because you don't want to get hurt. And all of these kind of competing messages that have been there. And again, it was often because of the environment. And I know for years I kind of blamed my parents, and now I realize, hang on, they were just doing the best that they could, right? Like, it wasn't their fault. They just had what they were given.
Yeah.
But again, I realized that, hey, I have those same opportunities that I can go and give not only to my family, but to others. And what you mentioned, I love seeing people where they're sitting there and they were dealing with a challenge, and suddenly they have that aha, and you can see the whole energy of that person completely shift. I mean, that's a beautiful place to sit in and to watch that actually kind of happen. And in a sense, as you mentioned, you're kind of co-creating a new being, a new person that's able to go and see that.
Yeah. And that's what brings me that's what lights me up.
Mm,
That's what brings me joy in the world, joy in my life, is to see others experience a transformation of growth, of possibility, of shedding off an old story and embracing a new story that will serve them better so
mm,
that life's better. Like It's all about making life
Yeah.
better.
Yeah. You just said something very interesting that serves them better. It just sounds so simple, yet it's just, I don't want to say funny, but it is kind of funny when I look at it now, how for years I was fighting that. Fighting the fact that I have the choice to be happy, yet somehow I convinced myself that that's not the choice that I should be taking, that I should be miserable, that I should not be happy, that I should go and have the opposite. And looking backwards, going like, that doesn't make any sense. But it was making complete sense back there.
Oh, yeah.
You
And
know?
most people live that way, honestly, Daniel. Most people live in a world where they don't believe they deserve to be happy. They've had, we've all had some experience that puts us in a victim mindset
Mm,
that, it wasn't fair, it wasn't deserved, it wasn't right, all of those things. And sometimes that's in relationships where that's a repeated pattern, or
mm,
at least it's our interpretation of what's happening. And in those, when I mention toxic, that's when we're moving into toxic. But you
mm,
can move out of toxic. You get to choose.
yeah,
And I even I hear of stories of abuse and things like that. And I'm not a therapist, so I don't even pretend to be that. But that if if there's a way to get out, then you can choose that if it's possible. And I think most times it
yeah,
is, and choose a different way. But there's a lot of healing, a lot of pain, a lot of hard things that people have to overcome. But it is a choice to decide to let the past be in the past and to create a future of brightness. I
yeah,
mean, Viktor Frankl is the perfect example of
yeah.
doing that.
Yeah, I mean, but I do have a saying, and it took me a while, and even with my family, they didn't understand it right from the beginning. When I said, "Hey, my life is perfect, just the way it is right now," because of everything that has happened in the past, and everything that has happened in the past was perfect because it created the person that I'm right now. And I remember even first time saying it, it was like it's kind of weird, but it's like no, it is perfect because if one small little thing changed, I would not be where I'm at, and I can either accept that I am where I'm supposed to be. And if something changed, yeah, it could be better, could be worse, but there is no point of spending any time of trying to think what it could be because it will never be. Right.
Yeah,
And I think there is no regrets. And that's sometimes where, yeah, I do have to remind myself, hey, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be.
that's a
Yeah, I could
beautiful
be,
way to
but
live, I think.
yeah, there is
I
no
love that.
point. Yeah, there is no point of trying to think about could be because it will never be. It's not going to happen. But I do have a choice right now what I choose to do moving forward. That's the only in this moment is the only time that I have the power to actually do something about it. Not 5 minutes from now or 5 minutes ago. Right now, this second, this moment is really when we have and really living present. One of the great movies that I love watching at least once a year is a Peaceful Warrior. That whole concept of that movie just completely transformed how I go and look at things and having those reminders because yeah, all we have is the present. That is the present. The present is the present.
Yeah.
But sometimes we feel like the destination is the present, and it's like no, the journey, where you are right now is really the prize.
Yeah. And it's finding the lesson. I mean, I'm sure anyone can look. I definitely look back at my life and look at the painful moments, and there have been many. And it's like, what did I learn out of that? What did that do for me? Maybe it helped me feel more empathetic in that particular situation, or there's so many lessons. And John Maxwell, who's prolific leader that I'm certified on his Maxwell team, says sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. And it's like, sometimes the outcome is exactly as you planned it and it works out great and
Yeah,
you're happy with the result. And sometimes it doesn't. Often it doesn't. And what are you going to learn from that?
yeah,
Is it a failure or is it learning? And
yeah,
if you can look at life as learning, at like what you were saying, this is a perfectly crafted life for me, is such a powerful belief.
yeah,
It's such a powerful belief to have that, because then all of a sudden you put yourself in, you're an empowered, you're a creator in your life and you're
yeah,
completely empowered. It's such a beautiful way to live.
yeah.
I love
And
that.
so I have a little bit different saying that I learned from one of the coaches that I work with, Myron Golden. He says this, Daniel, life is always working for you. It's either working for you or it's working on you, until it can work for you. And I think this is that mindset shift that you need to have. Like if you just look at that there, and most of my life I lived like, hey, things is either working for me or is working against me. Like that was my thinking. And
I
when
think most people have that
yeah,
that thinking.
because we think, oh, everything, that we live in the world of duality. You always have the opposite. And when I've heard, Marin kind of mentioning this, going like, no, life is always working for me. And I start looking backwards. I'm like going, man, it is. It's true. It actually works like that, because something in this moment might seem like, okay, and I often say this, God, I have no clue. Why did you allow this to happen? I mean, I would have chosen many different other ways to go and get the same result that maybe you're trying to get me. And then like months or a year later, you're looking backwards going like, oh, I'm so thankful that happened. But in that moment, we might not see the whole situation. We might not know what it's going to lead into. So we look at it negatively. But if we can start looking at it just kind of like, hey, you either have a, experience that's working for you, or you have a learning experience. When I'm looking at this, that's really what it comes down to. Hey, I just got to learn something. Maybe I've missed something that needs to be done better in a better way. And that really helps, because everything isn't positive. Myron also says, anytime we imagine anything about the future, if it's positive or a negative, we're lying to ourselves, because we got no clue what's going to happen like a second from now. We got no control over it.
Yeah.
But I know for me, most of my life, I can come up very creative, negative ways of everything that could go wrong in the future. And he goes like, hey, if you're going to lie to yourself, you might as well lie positively, not negatively. And I'm like, well, yeah, that makes sense.
There you go.
Why are you saying all of the bad things that are going to happen? Start thinking positive. And guess what? When you think positively, you will actually start creating more positive things, because if you have a negative view on
because your
something,
brain will then look for evidence of what you're believing.
Yeah.
And then it will actually it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy when you're positive.
You just said something very important, I think. Your brain will look for the evidence. They should teach that from like in kindergarten. And I think as kids, let me rephrase, I think as kids we know that. But somehow it's beaten out of us by society, by parents, by environment, whatever it is. And I'm not blaming all those other things, because we now have the power to beat it back into ourselves. And again, just having that reminder. But I think that was a big thing for me. And I don't always remember that, yeah, our brain looks for the evidence. Just like I'm looking for something on my desk. It was so weird. And I looked at it, I just started laughing at the end of it, going like, isn't that just fascinating? If you paid me $1 million, I would tell you, it's not there. I don't see it there yet. It's sitting right there. My brain was at work, right? Like we don't see with our eyes, we actually see with our brain, and our brain's going to give us the information.
Yeah. So that's the work, is really creating a more positive mindset, and then going after evidence, creating, leaders and teams that can generate that kind of power in the workplace or at home, in any sort of setting. I work with people professionally as well as personally, and really spiral up. Like it's a never ending growth. You're always growing, always learning, always developing. And then you are on to the next, but you should celebrate along the way.
No, that's
because it's powerful work. This is, I love it. I'm very grateful to be able to do it.
Yeah, no, you bring out a good point. So looking ahead, what kind of impact do you really want to do with the work that you're doing, and how do you really want to go and help people, 5-10 years from now?
Yeah. My goal, and I appreciate you being on the podcast, being on your podcast. I'm going to start a podcast called Elevate Anyway, and it will be to celebrate people who overcome challenges and elevate it anyway. It's inspired by Mother Teresa, and so that her, people will be mean, people will be rude, people will be dishonest, be kind, be truthful anyway. And I'm inspired by the idea that people overcome incredible obstacles and find a way to be successful. And I'm also inspired by people who look for any possible way to rise. Get creative, get innovative, get, try multiple things. And so it's kind of a play on words, so I'm excited to launch a podcast. I published a book this year. It's a guided journal called Awaken Your Joy, a guided journal to unleashing the life you love. And it's had good sales. We released it in October with my co-author Alicia. So we're looking at ways to maximize that work, and hope to put it into a children's book this year. That's a goal of mine.
Mm.
I feel inspired to do that. And so in addition to working with leaders and teams in small companies and in large companies to help elevate teams
Mm.
and leaders, I also am doing some of this work in positive psychology and neuroscience to help bring it into practice, make it a daily practice. So the guided journal provides a framework for creating a vision, a compelling vision that will actually move you, anchored in values, and then a journaling framework that is gives does the whole abundance cycle in a journaling framework. And so it's helping people level up their life, and that's how you create the life you love, is unleash it and practice it. So it's not a journal to write down your daily what's happened during this year, or what the daily. It's more of a journal to help you create the life that you want,
That's right.
using science-based principles.
Yeah.
So it's
I,
been
I,
fun.
I think you bring one point, and that's something that I definitely have to do when you're talking about the vision and all of that stuff. I go and I write the vision, and then I put it somewhere and I don't look at it. And then I go and write a new one, and I probably have about 15 or several different of them. And it's that daily reminder. It's that daily kind of that fuel that will go and fuel me as I'm kind of going through it, and others. Now, if someone feels successful on paper but empty underneath, what do you think would be kind of what should they really question first? What they really need to go and look at? Is there an advice you can give on that?
Well, that's a really good question. Well, I think number one is you need to be your best cheerleader.
Hmm.
You need to cheer for yourself. And that's hard to do. A lot of people feel defeated, feel failure or whatever. Life is giving them a rough go, whatever it is. So their mindset is seeing the problems and seeing their weaknesses. So again, getting back to the brain and rewiring it, the first thing you have to do is believe that something's better. There's hope in a better future, and that you are worthy of that. And that requires a lot of repetition, and actually speaking, your self-talk has to be really managed. And so the journal actually creates space for that, to express gratitude and to do positive affirmations. It helps reinforce the positive mindset practices that are science-based. We know that these work when you practice them regularly. It will
Hmm.
shift your mind. And then when you get into action planning, which is in the journal, you're actually aligning your actions are inspired. First of all, they're not just willy-nilly
Yeah.
actions, but they're inspired by the vision that you wrote. And then you actually, there's an alignment exercise to actually show that the action aligns to your vision. And then you celebrate. And when you start to do that process and follow that cycle, the abundance cycle, you actually start to rewire. And then
Hmm.
you'll start to see the wins. Like on the celebrate section, you celebrate the smallest possible win. Like, I got out of bed today. If that's it, put it down. Like if you're at rock bottom, start there.
Yeah.
And just start to do the work of shifting to a more positive frame. It's work. It takes work, but anyone
Funny.
can do it. It's totally possible.
You brought up a couple of things, and I think celebrating, just going doing achievements and all of that stuff. And I've got to practice more of that. Let's just put it in those words. There was a different story that was happening in my head, but I'm going to put it in there. It's definitely something I got to go and work on, because I think on a daily basis, I do a lot of things that other people find amazing. And I just, next, just kind of move on,
Oh, it's
move on
remarkable
to it. So,
on a daily basis, because I know some of what you do, your ice baths and things, like
yeah,
it's phenomenal,
yeah.
so extraordinary,
Just
so
thinking
beyond
about it, and
human
just to
beings.
give you a bit of a window, couldn't go and do it today because we had a winter storm, got about 2 feet. I couldn't find the hole, so I did run down there, and it was like minus, it was close to probably around 0 Fahrenheit or somewhere there. And it's just like, okay, next. And I don't think about it. So actually, that's exactly what I was thinking about, going like, hang on, you know what? I just need to slow down a little bit. And again, that's all part of it, learning what, what we're able to go achieve. Because yeah, once you do it once, it's kind of like it just becomes normal to us. And I think that's where the challenge is for a lot of high performers, is like they're always looking for that next thing. And I was watching a show about climbing Mount Everest, and I'm looking at those people and I'm thinking they're crazy because they're always looking for that next kind of a high and all that. Now talking to you, I'm like, hang on, I'm basically doing the same thing, maybe not on the same scale, but I'm doing the same thing. So it's a matter of how do I go and reflect and look, back a little bit and recognize some of those things that are happening.
Yeah. Positive self-talk. Celebrate.
Yeah.
There are wins every day, even small, simple ones.
Yeah.
They're powerful. And if you do celebrate, you will wire your brain for happiness.
Yeah.
It's proven science.
Yeah. No, it's really great. And listen, I've been enjoying our talk. I'm going to ask this question. I mean, the name of the podcast and Make Life Less Taxing, and it is originating more from the financial side of things. But what what does the Make Life Less Taxing mean to you? Like if you're talking about emotionally, mentally, and also creatively.
Wow. That's such a good question. What a great tie-in to your work. I think it's really the culmination of what we've been talking about. It really is rooted in how you feel about yourself, your beliefs, and your self-talk, and then what the possibilities are as you interact with others and lead. Um, those kinds of things bring energy to people and yourself. That kind of work pays off in spades. And you've mentioned you've done a lot of work in this area over the last few years. You're a different human being because of it,
Mm.
and a better human being because of it. And I think that everyone has that opportunity, and it's exciting. I mean, it's endless work, it's limitless, but it's also powerful. And so life is easier when you do the work to actually make it easier and more joyful, right? And
And,
that
and I'll, and I'll add to it
category, financial, relationships, social, your physical health, your personal health, your mental health, all these categories, your family, your spiritual life, all of this can be better
Hmm.
if you do the work to help improve your mindset.
And what I wanted to add to it is when you actually do the work that you're supposed to be doing.
There you go.
That you were created to be doing. And I think this is like for me, I believe like the work that I'm doing now is what I'm supposed to be doing. As opposed to before what I was doing, it always kind of felt like, yeah, well, I've been doing it because I've been doing it for years, but it did not really feel really fulfilling. It was almost that guilt. And I think this is what we're talking about here, is how do you actually stop and find out, not only on a daily basis, hey, are you doing the things that give you energy or that kind of suck that energy, but are you actually creating the life that you want? And this is what we do with financial advisors, like, hey, do you have those 4 W's? Because that's, for me, that's really what it comes down to. Like, are you truly doing what you were born to do? Are you doing it with who you want to do it with, when you want to do it, and where you want to do it? And those are really the freedoms that I think everybody wants. And if somebody says they don't want that, I'm not going to argue with that. But I think the reason maybe they don't want it is because they just don't want to spend the time to slow down and figure out what that is actually for them. They're just kind of, again, in that rut and feeling like, what they're doing is, what they feel that they need to be doing.
Well, and let me just say that the work you're doing is really powerful, and really needed and really important. And we've talked about even my own situation and some of the investments we have, some of the way I'm structured with my company, but also with my inheritances and running family businesses and other things, and getting that structured so that it is less taxing and it's absolutely so powerful.
Hmm.
It is so important. It is so valued, because then you can focus on, like, it is not my strength to be able to figure all that out. It's very
Yeah.
complex. And to have the gift of someone to be able to navigate that and help ease that soul sucking task so
Yeah.
that I can do what what lights me up is absolutely, it's a beautiful
Yeah,
gift. And so I really want to thank you for the work that you do and
yeah,
for, how you're showing up in the world.
yeah.
It's really powerful and to be honored and celebrated, to be
Well, thank you.
celebrated.
You just mentioned one word, structured. And I think this is when I'm talking about the four W's. The reason that the four W's and the freedom we can have is actually when we get things more structured. And it's kind of fascinating how most people think structure is actually confining. And it's like, no, no, it's the opposite.
Yeah.
The best
Yeah.
way
It's freedom.
I can think of, the 10 commandments, right? A lot of people look at in the Bible, 10 commandments. Oh, it is restrictive. And it's like, no, no, no. They're there to protect you from yourself. Literally, that's what it is. It's not to constrict you. It's to actually give you more freedom, right? Because you're going to protect yourself from yourself. And I think in anything that we want, when we do go and introduce some type of structure, the traditional way of thinking, or the way that I was brought up, thinking structure is something that's going to confine me, but actually having structure, when we're talking about having boundaries, actually means that it actually creates more for me. And again, I think this is where a lot of times the definitions that we've heard or how we lived our life is pretty well the opposite of what we should be doing. We would just never explain that the opposite is actually way better than what we're doing right now.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's really interesting. And, you mentioned structure and frameworks. That's kind of how I do my work too.
Mm,
It's like, it's nice to be able to say, yeah, we want to elevate everyone and have everyone be happier. But there's a science and there's a technique and structure that's required to really help people understand and have something to anchor them to so that they can do the work well
mm.
and make those positive changes. And so you're about structure, but I'm also about structure in that sense that it does require a framework, some way of working that actually makes sense and can help move you forward in a meaningful way and protect you from yourself. Like you said.
And as we're talking about this, I just realized everybody has a structure. Just
Yep.
because you don't think you have a structure, you have a structure. Whatever you're doing right now is your structure. And you got to ask yourself, is the structure that I have helping me get to where I want? Or is it holding you back or keeping you where you're at and not reaching that next level? I
That is
think,
a great point.
yeah.
Excellent. Yes, absolutely. I
Speaking,
agree with that.
one of my coaches, and he said this, and I think it's very powerful. It's kind of like, hey, listen, if you, whatever success you've had, you need to realize whatever got you to the success to where you are right now is what's going to keep you from the success that you want to achieve beyond that. And I think this is kind of like using it in money ways. Like if somebody goes and makes the first 100,000 or the first $1 million, what got you to 1 million is not going to get you to 10 million. Like it will keep you at 1 million. What got you to the million? It takes a whole different way of thinking and believing, and different structure and different work. And I think this is often what happens. We kind of get into success and then we get into a rut because we think that doing more of what got us here is going to give us more. No, it doesn't work like that, unfortunately.
Yeah. It's always breaking boundaries. It's always spiraling up. It's always looking forward and upward. That's it. I agree with you.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Got to break out of that
Be a
that
life
box.
coach. You should be a mindset coach.
I, put a part of it is, again, yes, I'm just going to go into that, and I partly do that when we work with clients and everything, going and talking about that. And again, part of it is I think we work on ourselves, and then we just want to go and share it, what we have gone through, and see how somebody else is going through that. This has been awesome. I really enjoyed this. As we're going to close this up, I call them the rapid fire round. 4 questions that I'm going to ask. What's the
Okay.
first thing that comes to your mind is usually the answer that I'm looking for. What is the
Okay.
favorite book that really shaped your thinking?
Mastering affluence.
Hmm.
I mean, it's one of many, but that's the
Yeah,
first one that comes to mind.
perfect. A morning routine or a habit that you can't live without?
Yeah, I have an 8-step morning routine. Um, I drink hot water every morning. I don't go in the ice bath.
That's mine. It's okay. I'll keep it.
Yeah, it's water, movement, meditation, professional learning, um, affirmations, journaling,
Hmm.
prayer, and what's my 8th? I'm losing it. Oh, it's my, I guess you could call it, it's a unique affirmation that I do,
Mm,
to help kind of set myself up for the day. So I like to do that. I call it my 8 step.
mm.
It's, Elev8d Solutions is my business name. The number 8 is in
Yeah.
it. In the
Sounds like a bit
spell,
of a structure that you have in the morning.
yeah, it goes fast. Like drinking hot
Yeah.
water, it goes fast. Saying prayer, it moves fast. The meditations are fast. The movement is usually just a bit of yoga or or going for a short walk or,
Mm,
some sort of movement. I usually do my actual fitness later in the day, like going to the gym or anything more heavy. But it's just to get the blood flowing, get things going. So it goes fast. I can do my whole morning routine in a half an hour.
yeah. No,
But
that's great.
it when I do it, and I don't always do it every day, but when I do it, it sets my day up for
So,
a beautiful day every time.
yeah,
I have an evening routine too, but I won't talk about that. Well, I would say that the one thing that's most important is the movement
moment. Yeah.
that getting the blood flowing. And then they're all important. It's all, I can't choose.
Yeah. No, no, it's a structure. No, it's the routine, right? Now, is there one bucket list item that you haven't checked off yet?
Yeah, definitely. Well, there's lots, but the one that is top of mind every day, all day is we want to build our dream home.
Mhm.
And we have a lot and we're moving toward that. And
Awesome.
my husband is a pickleball player. He plays at the national pretty elite level. And we want to put a pickleball court in our dream home. And so it'll be an indoor court. So that is on my bucket list, top of the
Yeah,
list,
that
and looking forward to that, getting
sounds
going on
exciting.
that soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Now, is there a surprising hobby or interest that really recharges you?
Well, pickleball is I know it's the fastest growing sport in the world, and I have picked it up. I'm not nearly as good as my husband, but I do play it several times a week with
Mm,
my socially with my girlfriends. It's reignited so many friendships and helped me create new friendships. It's such a social sport and so much fun. So I'd say pickleball is probably the first activity that I really love and that I enjoy a lot. Also, I enjoy yoga,
mm,
which I was a runner for many years and, it was always the aggressive running and trail running and Ragnar and all these different races. And I'm slowing down and learning that yoga and Pilates and
uh,
other forms of exercise are really enjoyable and taking time for that.
yeah. No, that's great. Now, I've got one last question. Fast forward to the end of your life. Imagine that everyone forgot everything that you've ever taught them or you showed them, but they do have the opportunity to remember one kind of last message from you or the most important message. What would that message be?
That she loved me. I love people, all people, but hopefully whoever was reflecting would feel that.
Hmm. Awesome. Wow. Listen, Andrea, what a powerful and perspective shifting conversation. Thank you so much for sharing your journey. Where can people find out a little bit more about you and the work that you do?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn at Andrea Davis, MBA. And then I have a website, elev8dsolutions.com. And you can reach out there. I also have an Instagram account. And then you can find my book, Awaken Your Joy, a guided journal to unleashing the life you love on Amazon.
Perfect. So if you're listening, be sure to check out Andrea's resources. We will have show notes with the recordings. Andrea, thank you again for your time and your message. And remember, Make Life Less Taxing isn't just about money. It's about freedom, clarity, and purpose. Keep building your wealth, keep protecting your legacy, and keep living the untaxable lifestyle. We'll see you next time on the Make Life Less Taxing podcast. Thank you again, Andrea.
Thank you so much, Daniel. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Have a great day.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Make Life Less Taxing podcast. Be sure to check out our other top advisor interviews at makelifilesstaxingpodcast.com.